I've always hated these last days before Lent because now's the time you had to decide what you were going to give up, right? Was it going to be candy or bubble gum? You know, that was the big issue when I was a kid. But perhaps we need to put the whole Lenten experience, which is this Wednesday, don't forget, Ash Wednesday is coming up, put it in a different perspective. We're living in a very tumultuous time politically, are we not? No matter where you come from or how you think politically, it's an unsettled period. And when you stand back and analyze it, what is the basic core problem? It's how we interpret, how we live out the Constitution of the United States. Because all the other things that we do together, all the ways we regulate our life together in this country, all comes from the Constitution of the United States. That's why if you don't like a law, you get a lawyer to prove it's unconstitutional, right? Well, Lent is the time to get away from giving up bubble gum or something like that, although they're probably good things to do anyway, and to examine the Constitution of the Church, of the kingdom of God, not just the church, because the church isn't the kingdom of God. Thank God the church is not the kingdom of God. The church is the vanguard of the kingdom of God. The point people, you and I, you and me, all of us, we are the point people for the kingdom of God, which began with Jesus. And the Constitution of the kingdom of God we've been listening to for the past several Sundays. It's called the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel. So perhaps what we have to do as members of the kingdom of God is to do exactly what we do in our political history and our political life together. We examine the way we're living relative to the kingdom of God, relative to the Constitution of the kingdom of God, which is the Sermon on the Mount. So I have a suggestion for Lent. I think you should go and give up something. It's like, you know, the Catholic Wellness Center. You give up booze or cigarettes or something like that. But I think we should do something more positive, because, you know, those giving up things can be very egocentric. I'm giving up sweets. I also like to lose a little weight, you know, so it's not as penitential as it sounds. It's more cosmetic. Let's examine day by day the Constitution of the Kingdom of God, chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel. Now, that sounds like a big deal. That's 3 chapters, 109 verses, and if you did it every day, it would be 3 verses a day. What do? You take the Constitution, you take the Sermon on the Mount, 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel, and you read it, and you reflect on it, and you say to yourself, what the heck does that mean? Or, oh, that's what he's talking about. And you apply it to your own life in the kingdom of God, the way you live with God in prayer, the way you live with the rest of us in daily life, and then you speak to God about what your reflections are bringing up. And perhaps it's a good sometime in the reflection period to be a little silent, to stop thinking and let the Spirit bring things up for you, okay? What a challenge. Because the Constitution of the Kingdom of God, Sermon on the Mount, is really much more difficult to live out than the Constitution of the United States is difficult to live out. It's challenging. And that's why we probably avoid it so much. So what I'm saying, if you really want to be penitential, take these 3 chapters and live with them for the next 40 days. and make whatever adjustments in your political life, your life with God, your life with us, you think the gospel is calling you to do. A great way. Give up something for Lent. But don't forget that giving up stuff always has to refer to other people. If you give up bubble gum and you don't give the money for the bubble gum to the poor, then you're not really doing it right, you know? So give up something, sure. But do something positive. Enter into the constitution of the kingdom of God and check your citizenship. Check if you really deserve the passport which Christ has supplied with bringing us into citizenship in the kingdom. The church is going through the same political process that our country is going through. Our Pope is leading us into a more serious examination of how we're living in the kingdom. We have been very rigid in our application of Jesus' teaching at some times in our history. And we've been unmerciful to each other as a consequence. And he's calling us to re-examine how we're living in the kingdom. And the way to do that is the Sermon on the Mount. So let us proceed to do something for Lent and head for a very joyous celebration of the Lord's resurrection at Easter.